Hello and welcome to another episode of UK Media Warrior. Doctor Strange has just hit the cinemas and it was always going to be one of Marvel's toughest films to sell to the general audience. It was going to have an uphill struggle, and the reason being for that, Doctor Strange isn't as well known as some of the other heroes they have currently got in films. Iron Man, Captain America, Thor, Spider-Man, for example, in the Avengers. Those are slightly more well known. Doctor Strange has always been kind of like a niche character in the comics and hasn't had as big a following as perhaps some of the others did. Also, they had to somehow bring over this rather weird world that Doctor Strange lives in, with all the alternate dimensions, the magic, and how that looks on the comic book. Well, that's one thing, but how you actually transfer that to screen, that was going to be a very tough job. And Scott Derrickson, the director, has done a really, really excellent work on it. I honestly can't fault him. He's done very well indeed. Now, that said, this for me was a hard film to watch. Now, I don't know Doctor Strange. I knew of him. I haven't really followed him in the comics. He's never really appealed to me in that sense. But this film was hard for me, not because of the character. The character itself was fantastic, played excellently by Benedict Cumberbatch, who is just a fantastic actor without equal at the moment. Really, everything he touches turns to gold. But he's a fantastic actor. And also in this, he's backed up by Tilda Swinton, Mads Mikkelsen, Chiwetel Ejiofor is also there. So he's got a very, very solid cast of people around him to help him out. But he portrays Stephen Strange very well. And is being compared by a lot of people to Tony Stark. Arrogant, rich, playboy style person, something bad happens to him and all of a sudden he turns good and carries on his journey like that. Well, yeah, okay, there is a similarity in the beginning of this film. This is an origin story. In the beginning of this film, Stephen Strange is a brilliant neurosurgeon who's very rich. He's basically a dick to those he works with. But that's pretty much where he stops. There's not really a lot of charm. There really is no element of Doctor Stephen Strange back then that you can look at and go, well, yeah, okay, he's a dick, but there is no but. With Tony Stark, he was flamboyant, he was a playboy, he was garrulous, but you know, you looked at him and you smiled and you thought, yeah, okay, yeah, all right, he's a bit of a dick and he's got all this money and he's acting like that, fine. But, you know, you could have some fun with him. No, not with, not with Stephen Strange. So that was what a lot of people have compared them to. They're very similar. And yes, there are similarities, but obviously I've just pointed out the differences there. Also in this film, they had to cover a lot of ground quite swiftly. It's not a very long film. In fact, I think it's possibly one of the shortest ones actually released by Sony. It's 115 minutes. So considering released by Marvel, considering that most of Marvel's films are in the 2-hour element or well over, this is one of their shorter ones, and they had a lot of ground to cover, and to do that they do seem to have taken some shortcuts. The first third of the film is basically Stephen Strange, his accident, his search for some way to heal his hands, because he needs his hands. Everything, all of his wealth and fame have come from his ability to be a neurosurgeon. He can't do that when his hands are screwed up because of his car crash. So he has to find a way of repairing them. Now, whereas modern science has failed, he goes to the East and looking for somebody called the Ancient One, played by Tilda Swinton, who will, he hopes, heal him through some technique he isn't aware of. Well, when he gets there, she says, well, yeah, I can heal you, but it's all going to be a matter of time, and it's about the spirit. It's your inner chi. It's your energy. And when he finds out there isn't some modern technology he just wasn't aware of, that it's all about spirit, he wants nothing really to do about it. but with nowhere else to go, he has to buckle down and learn. And this is where the shortcut comes in. In pretty much no time at all, he seems to have gone from knowing absolutely nothing to being a sorcerer. And it's sort of explained away in literally a couple of sentences when they're sort of like, well, you know, one of the characters, Ejiofor, says to Stephen Strange, you shouldn't be able to do that. How do you know how to do that? And Stephen Strange says, well, I've got a photographic memory. And we already know he's a genius. So it's explained away by saying, oh, he's got a photographic memory, he's a genius, so that's why he's basically been able to learn all of this stuff in no time at all. Or we assume it's no time at all, and this is something else. The passage of time. When you're watching it on screen, it looks like he's learned to become a sorcerer in weeks or months. It probably would have taken years, but you just don't know. There's no way of telling. There's no gauge during the film to let you know how much time has passed since when he first got there to when he becomes a sorcerer can actually do spells. There's just no way of knowing. Now, the bad guy in this film is Mads Mikkelsen, and he turns out that he was once a pupil of the Ancient One who decided that her teachings weren't for him, and he found out about this other dimension, where basically the death dimension, where he could live forever if he used the power that was there. So I suppose a little bit like the dark side in Star Wars. But there's a god or an entity who lives in that dimension, who basically gets all of his power by sucking life out of all the other universes and all the other dimensions. And one by one, he's been doing that, but Earth has been protected by the Sorcerer Supreme, in this case Tilda Swinton, the Ancient One. And there are 3 bases around the world, sanctums around the world, that cast a shield that prevents this dark entity from coming to Earth. There's one in Hong Kong, there's one in London, and there's one in New York. Now Mads and his followers manages to destroy the one in London, and this basically drags Strange into the battle, because up until this point he really didn't want anything to do with this fight. He just wanted to get well, heal his hands, and go back to what he knew. But because of this, he is dragged inexorably into this fight, and there's this huge fight scene between Stephen Strange and sorry, excuse me, Benedict Cumberbatch and Ejiofor and Mads Mikkelsen and his followers, where it's basically like Inception. If you've ever seen Inception, where like the city's folding in half and that sort of thing, it's like that, but 10 times worse. And this is where I started to have trouble. I know they had to somehow get on screen the different dimensions and the spells and the magic and the arena that Stephen Strange fights in. I understand that. But this was a little overpowering, or at least it was for me. The running, fighting during this quite long scene was really confusing, and you never knew who the hell you were seeing on screen, or where they were going, or what was happening, or who they were fighting. It was just a mess, just total confusion. Now, whether that was the point, because obviously Stephen Strange was feeling those emotions as well at this point, because this is the first time he'd been in this sort of a battle, this sort of world. Perhaps they were trying to say, well, look, you, the audience, are confused by what's going on. Imagine how this feels for him. So that might be what they were trying at, but it was very heavy and for the audience to watch. So that wasn't good. The acting throughout the film is pretty good. Tilda Swinton basically steals every scene she's in. As I've already said, Benedict Cumberbatch is an excellent actor. Chiwetel Ejiofor, who has been in a number of films recently. I remember him from Serenity, where he played the black guy in there with the sword. It's been a while since I watched the film, but you know the guy, I mean, the black guy with the sword who was hunting down Nathan Fillion's crew and all that. He's in this film, and the visuals are stunning. The magic, the actual magic itself that you see them conjuring and performing on screen is fantastic. It really is. Another complaint for me is the music. Now, The score for this film was done by Michael Giacchino, who has done the music for the recent new Star Trek films. And it felt for me all the way through it, I was hearing the same music that I'm used to hearing in the Star Trek films. It's almost exactly the same. In fact, there are a couple of points during the film and in the credits at the end where he uses exactly the same music. I mean, exactly the same music. It's like just I can't think of what to put in here. What have I got on my desk? Oh, here's something from Star Trek Into Darkness. Yeah, we'll use that. And just bung that in there. It seemed very lazy, and I'm surprised because Giacchino is a fantastic musician, a fantastic musical director, and he's usually better than this. But this just felt lazy. So by the end of the film, spoiler. By the end of the film, Tilda Swinton's the Ancient One has died. Stephen Strange has become the protector of the New York Sanctum. He's uncovered and used one of the Infinity Stones, the green one, the Infinity Stone that controls time, and he uses that to beat the bad guy at the end. Mads Mikkelsen is dead. Everything is being put back together and healed. Okay. Benedict Cumberbatch is Doctor Strange. Doctor Strange has decided that he doesn't need to go back to being what he was. This is the path he needs to be on now. The Ancient One has convinced him that there is more to life than just his own ego and needs. So, as she dies, giving him this final piece of information that to really attain the level of power that he needs, just remember, it's not all about you. And it's like a door opening and he realizes, and then she dies, and the movie comes to an end. Another good thing about this movie is the Cloak of Levitation, which is a character in its own right and is really fun. So that's good. And talking of fun, the humour in this film. Now, there were reshoots, and it was reported that the reshoots were due to adding more humour to the film because it was becoming a little bit too dark. Now, Marvel have always managed to walk that thin line between drama, action, and humour. They managed to combine all three and make their films perfect. Perfect balance of all of them. This one, I think they may have injected too much humour. Now, some of the jokes are funny. Some of them really work and they do make you laugh out loud. But there are a lot of jokes. There are a lot of one-liners, most of them coming from Strange himself. Some of them don't work. Some of them fall flat. But as I say, a lot of them work, but there are a lot of them. And I don't think they needed to have so many jokes in here. Yes, it was a dark film. There was a lot going on, a lot of serious stuff happening. But this time, they seem to have sent it a little bit too much into the comedy realm, and that didn't need to happen. Not in this film. It was being held together perfectly well by the script and the acting. But there you go. Dr. Stephen Strange is hit. It's doing very well at the box office at the moment. It will probably be in my top 10 of favourite comic book films, but it won't be my top 5. It was just a little bit too hard for me to watch in places, and although I enjoyed watching Benedict on screen again, and he really is Doctor Strange, I can't think of anyone else who would be better to play that character. It just wasn't... There were just too many little things, little niggly things that detracted from this film for me. So for me, this film's going to be a 6 out of 10. Not one of the best from Marvel, but it will be interesting to see going forward how they interject Doctor Strange into the Marvel Universe. In the post-credits scene, he meets Thor, so that'll be an in to Thor Ragnarok that's coming up soon. But yeah, overall for me, a few too many misses for me to put this film any higher on my list. But go and see it. I'm sure most of you will enjoy it. Like I say, the visuals are fantastic. The acting is superb. So even with the niggles, I'm sure you'll probably get it and like it. Have fun. You guys take care, and I'll see you next time on UK Media Way.